On Class 6 roads, we asked the police chief to look into when cars and plows that are going down these roads, and he's located one individual that asked him to stop plowing County Road. We had a citizen in, talking about when they do plow it and the water goes down, it goes on his property. I'm wondering, and a citizen asked me this, we post our other roads during mud season. Why can't we post it, put a sign on our Class 6 roads during mud season, in effect saying, don't go over them? Because when people go over Lang Pond Road and go over County
You're talking
Road,
the Class 5 seasonals.
this
Right.
is they make ruts, and guess who has to repair them? If people just stayed off them for a month, it would be less work for you. And I thought the citizen had a good idea.
For most of them, not all of them, Lang Pond would probably be the exception, but most of the ones that we have basically are posted on the tar sections to get to them. So they'd have to go across the tar sections to get there to start with.
And the bottom of the sign says, pass at your own risk.
We put up mud signs usually on
Yeah.
all dirt roads, just same thing, pass it over.
I thought that was a good suggestion by the citizens.
Yeah.
So thinking back about that citizen, it didn't dawn on me when he was here, but if there's water going into his driveway or his house lot or whatever, because of plowing by a vigilante plowing it, why isn't there water going on? Is there water going onto his property from the road in the summer or in the spring or in the fall? So if that's the case, should we be looking at the ditching there?
Well, I think the ditching is fine, but the problem is the person that plows it makes one swath down the middle, and now we have a luge for the water to go. It's not getting off to the
When
side.
it rains.
Correct, when it rains in the wintertime.
Comes down the hill.
And we've already got.
Because if the water doesn't get to the ditches, you've got
Correct.
banks on it.
Where if we were taking care of it, the wings would reach out far enough that it would open up to the ditch lines. I think that.
So
is the
absent the
difference.
snow, we don't have a drainage problem
No.
up on County Road.
Yeah.
Thank you for your
Yeah.
interpretation.
Yeah.
Anything else?
That's it.
Well, thank you for making it through the winter so fast.
So,
Till Wednesday.
yeah, correct. Thank you.
Sure. We have a citizen coming in to talk about Class 6 roads, if you want to hang around for a few minutes.
Okay, sure.
He's supposed to be in at 9:55. Next is our Honorable Treasurer, Jack Whitmer. Come on down. Hello, sir. How you doing?
Morning, Jack.
Great, how are you? You also know yours.
So you're in the witness protection thing, now they can't see.
That's, yeah,
Right, no one knows who he is.
that's all right.
So I invited the treasurer in for two reasons. One, to try to get some sort of understanding of the credit card situation.
Yeah,
And the other is the checkbook.
yeah. The credit card is the easy one to talk
Okay, let's
about.
do the easy one
Yeah,
first.
well, that's okay. In order to apply for a credit card, you have to have a person's name attached to it. You can't get one just under the town of Tuftonboro. Because you have to have somebody's name attached to it, which requires social security information, and they have.
So there's no corporate card available?
No. I've got the same situation at work. I've got four corporate cards. My social security number is attached to each one of them, and it goes on my credit report because that's the way it is. You can't get one under a municipality. I looked, you just can't do it. I don't mind getting the process started, but if Jack's gonna have, be responsible for a card, his information has to be on it. He has to have the security questions and all that stuff.
So we couldn't
know.
take the chairman of the select board and use that as the credit person and have Jack Parsons' name on the card?
You could.
Okay.
The problem is if the selectman changes, then the card is no longer valid.
Right.
and.
So
or-
nobody ever runs for treasurer, I think, like Jack Woodward's credit's probably good.
How do we do it for the other department heads?
If you go back into, because I wasn't involved in the process when they got those cards, but if you go back in the process, you look at the application, Adam's social security number is on the card, attached to it. The town's ID may also be attached to it, but his ID is that his birth date, all that information is on the application from way back when.
And
Well, I can tell you, going back 20 years or more, that was always the way.
Yeah.
You know, if you had a corporate card account in business, the individual cardholders' information was on it as well as the company's.
Correct.
So then we provide Adam with a guarantee of payment? Or
Well,
is this
yeah,
just a
yeah, I mean,
handshake?
when you're signing it as the selectmen application or whatever, you're basically guaranteeing that it's gonna be paid. But if the town for some reason doesn't pay it, the credit card company is gonna go after the individual. And that's just why they have the individual attached to it.
Yeah.
It's really more of a personal guarantee than it is the town guarantee. The individual is guaranteeing that it's gonna be paid. So, it's not a big deal to get applications and get them done. It's just that you have to decide who's gonna be on it and, whose information's gonna be out there. And I'm facing the same thing. I mean, at some point, I'm gonna retire. And all of these credit cards that are in my name at the business now, are gonna have to be changed.
Is this the same for debit cards?
Debit cards are a little different. We can actually get a debit card in the town's name from Merrifield Savings. The problem with the debit card is that transaction happens right then and there, and you don't have a time to approve any purchases
Right.
because it's done. And you're not gonna get a separate credit card statement for it to sign off on. It's gonna be quite a bank statement showing the debit transactions on the bank statement.
And although it happens very rarely in our setting, a credit card offers certain protection if for some reason the transaction needs to be canceled.
Yeah, the debit card probably would give you some protection as well. But
And you can put limits on those.
yeah, oh, sure, you could.
So-
And the thing is, just have to really decide that, a debit card is worth it. There's only gonna be 10 or 15 transactions a month. When the bank statement comes in, it will probably be after the fact, so you're gonna be recording the expense in the month prior to the expense actually happening. Probably because you're not gonna necessarily know all of those transactions until the bank statement gets in and you can reconcile those with the charges. Unless, you can set up a system.
Well, it'd be
where-
the same as a petty cash transaction. You have to bring a receipt in,
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, and you could also set it up, if you wanted to do a debit card, set it up, just like you do now, when you have a debit card transaction, the receipt has to be attached to whatever that transaction is. And it goes to the office, and they can record it every day if they wanted. And then at the end of the month,
Right, so-
those would be listed on the bank
On the
statement, and
statement.
would have to be
Right.
checked off from the bank statement. So,
So I guess we need to, my feeling would be that we need to probably sit and have a discussion about how much we need credit cards or debit cards or whatever.
Now,
Device we need for.
we currently have,
purpose.
what, 2 out?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, Andy has one,
and Adam has one.
And where they have found that it's been very useful, I remember the last time we talked about this, is more and more they go to order something for their department.
Sure.
And it's none of this, we'll send it to you and send a bill. They need a credit card.
Right.
This has been in effect, what, 4 or 5 years?
Oh, sure.
And have there been issues as far as you can see?
No, everything's verified when the credit card statements come in, all the receipts are there to match up. So it's really never been an issue. And again, if somebody's ordering something online, and most of the time it's probably gonna be online today, it's not gonna be, calling them on the phone, they're gonna go online and order it. They're gonna if they print out the receipt to match up to their their credit card transaction, you can certainly print out the receipt to match up to a debit transaction.
Yeah.
Doesn't make any difference. So the process is gonna be the same.
Yeah, and if we
It's
were
just
worried,
when, it's just when you're recording it and when you're,
Yeah.
you know,
and if we were worried about security issues, I mean, certainly, we could set up another checking account, get a debit, you know, if we didn't want, if there was some concern that buying things online with the town checking account, which might have $1 million in it,
Exactly.
you know, puts that money at risk. for-
yeah, you could certainly
Yeah.
easily do that, set up a small account with a couple of $1,000s in it, and, you know, reconcile that strictly for
And then
debit
just-
transaction,
right.
if that's what you wanted to do.
Well, we currently have a system that's in place and it's been working no problem. My thought would be we just expanded, there's another department head
Yeah.
who would,
I think the big question came up when we moved from TD Bank, I mean, not TD Bank, from People's. The credit card says People's on it. Somebody says, well, okay, we're not with People's anymore, let's get rid of those credit cards and replace them with either a generic card or Merrill Village Savings Bank. Well, Merrill Village Savings doesn't do credit cards. They have a third party processor, but it's all debit transactions. So you leave the cards the way they are, or get 3 new debit cards for the department heads and set up your little debit card process, however you want to do it. Either way, it's really not the volume of transactions is pretty small. It may expand as you know, companies don't want to send a bill, but most companies that the towns are dealing with are dealing with municipalities, and they don't expect municipalities to use credit cards.
Different.
Well, and
Yeah.
it's interesting, as I sort of did an informal canvas with other towns to see what they do. There are two camps. There are some towns, there are no credit cards, no debit cards, everything's runs through the invoice system. And they don't have any problem dealing with people. And there are other towns that extensively use purchase cards, which is a credit card. My understanding is that it's a restricted credit card. So this department has a card they can use, but it only works for certain types of purchases. So, you know, if I want to buy an airline ticket on that card, not going to work, kind of thing. So it's not a here's the way everybody does it. Some towns use credit cards, other towns it's like, no, we don't do it at all, and we don't have any problem that, you know, you deal with you know, even in the internet world of ordering online today, that there are enough vendors out there that we deal with that it just simplifies it when it all goes through the invoice system. All the normal checks and balances are covered. The invoice comes in, it gets processed, manifest gets approved, and the whole bit. So it's
I think as small as the transactions are here, as small
we don't
as the
have
town is,
we don't have a
I
problem.
don't think you'd have an issue anyway. If Andy and Adam are comfortable using a credit card or debit card or whatever, and I've seen nothing but you know, all the transactions have been documented with receipts and all that stuff. If you want to keep that process going, I mean, standardize the process. Have one system, either credit cards or debit cards.
Mhm.
Debit cards, again, are not a big issue, it's just how you record them. There's a little bit different process. That's all it really is.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Right.
to do that, I mean, I can start the process. If you want to look at debit cards, I can get with Merritt Village and get the applications. I think they still have somebody's name on them as a, you know, as the responsible party.
Right.
But it can come right through, it'll have the town of Tuftonboro listed as the top, I think, with the individual's name on the bottom as opposed to vice versa.
is the board willing to make a decision today? You want to think about it a
Well, I
little
think
bit?
we need to talk to our department heads and look at, I mean, if we're gonna change the system, we need to look at the historic purchases
Sure.
and what the needs
Yeah.
are.
Okay.
Second topic.
Yeah.
reconciliation. What's the stumbling block here?
Well, there really isn't. I reconcile the bank statements every month. The issue apparently becomes with the few credit card transactions that we have, not very many compared to other types of transactions. But I reconcile every week when I come in. I reconcile with the tax collector, the town clerk, the selectmen give me for weekly deposits, and I verify those every week, and I have a separate Excel system that I make sure that all that stuff balances. At the end of the year, or at the end of each month, actually, Jackie gives me a list of all of her deposits for the month. I make sure they match my system, and I've checked those off against bank deposits. The issue with the bank statement and credit cards, it's kind of twofold. There's an issue with trying to reconcile the electronic deposits, because Jackie will list out the electronic deposits, and on her list, she does more than Heather does, obviously. The electronic deposits come in, and on the backup paperwork, which she keeps, I don't, she has every individual that was electronic, and there's sort of checks, cash, etc. At the end of the day, the front sheet says $10,000 of cash, $5,000 of electronic deposits. When the bank statement comes through, you can't find that $5,000 deposit, because the $5,000 deposit can come into the bank in multiple
In increments.
increments. One customer one day, one customer another day. So all of a sudden, you're getting 8 transactions on the bank statement that you really can't identify, and all they say is electronic deposit. And there's no way to match those up.
You're talking about people that pay their taxes or their registrations with a credit card?
No.
No?
Not credit card, or electronic deposit.
Okay,
So in other words, if your bank is paying your tax bill,
right,
that's just an electronic transfer.
right.
So all these electronic transfers, we have a lot of those for tax bills, obviously. It's almost impossible to identify those on the bank statement. Once in a while, if there's one during a transaction, I can easily spot that on the bank statement, because it's a one number that showed up as an electronic
But
deposit.
doesn't Jackie get a record of those electronic?
She can list them all out as electronically.
Right.
But how the bank records them, say the bank has, she gets an electronic deposit notification. And so she's got a whole list of 12 electronic deposits.
Yeah.
Well, when they actually hit the bank, they didn't hit as 12 deposits in the same day. They could have been 3 deposits in one transaction, 1 deposit the next day, 4 deposits the following day. So they're all over the place. So it's almost impossible to match them up. Not impossible.
Right.
Probably the way to do it is for me to set up a separate sort of sub-ledger. And using Jackie's paperwork, because I gave her paperwork back to her that actually lists the individual deposits. All I get for my copy is the cover sheet.
So just to step back a second,
Yeah.
she doesn't reconcile her deposits against a bank statement?
No, that's basically what I'm doing is at the end of the, she's saying she sent to the bank $20,000 in cash.
Mhm.
But on her report was also $10,000 electronic deposits. Right? She didn't send those to the bank.
Right, but she doesn't do any reconciliation of those?
She's
She just gets the money.
she's recording those as just like somebody paid cash.
Okay.
But if, I guess if I kept the second page, which shows cash and electronics, and, because all the individuals are gonna be listed together. regardless of how they paid. It would be easy enough to set up a sub-ledger
Mhm.
to record on this particular deposit, here's the electronic deposits. But then again, trying to match those up with what the bank
Right.
says and how they did it, would be a little bit of a challenge. It could be done, but a little bit of a challenge.
And this is a stumbling block for our auditors, I believe. It was the,
But it's, I think the stumbling block was more on the credit card as it was electronic deposits. Because
okay,
electronic deposits we've been doing for as long as I can remember.
right,
Credit card deposits are fairly new. We really haven't done those until the systems changed this past year and a half maybe. Not that many of them. They do show up on the bank statement as Heartland deposits,
mhm,
but they are usually within a deposit that either Heather or Jackie has done as part of their electronic transfer process. So I don't see a separate transaction for those necessarily.
yeah,
And I would just ask Diane when I came in, if I could look at a Heartland statement. We don't get a Heartland statement. Well, if we don't get a Heartland statement, how can we reconcile what they've said they've deposited in our bank?
right.
And again, this is fairly new. This year's the first time.
Is there an online statement? Is that-
I didn't even know we were doing Heartland.
Okay,
I mean, I certainly go online at work and download all my transactions, you can see everything.
yeah,
But she said they don't even get a statement, they don't get anything from Heartland. So if they're not getting anything from Heartland, but Heartland's saying they're depositing money, where, how do you
Yeah.
piece it together,
are they depositing all the money?
as far as I know? But are they, but
There's
that,
no way
but
of
that,
knowing.
well, but that's the other question. Are they depositing, somebody uses their credit card to pay their registration for $300. Are we getting the $300 or are we getting $297 deposited?
Right,
Or $290 deposited because they're taking a 3% fee?
right,
I don't know.
right. And how do we need to account for the fee
What, yeah,
Somewhere
is it being?
as an expense?
Right.
Right, and I think the fee is added.
Well, I think the
Because
fee,
when-
I think the
when
fee
you
is
do-
added, but then if the fee is being added, how is it being recorded on our side?
Mhm.
Right,
Is it part of the deposit and then coming out as an expense on the other side, or is
Right.
it just being recorded as a?
Is that something you can work on with Diane and get
Sure.
back to us?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I can certainly find out. I mean, the fact of the matter is, every month I do the bank reconciliations, print out the reports, they're all in the files, they're all there. The biggest question is, nothing ever quite balances because I record what the town clerk or tax collector gives me in a given month. But certainly at the end of the month, some of those electronic transfers maybe didn't hit yet, but
right.
I don't know that.
Paid on the 30th, recorded on the 2nd.
Right, but on their books here, it's recorded.
The day that it's,
The day it's recorded in the system.
Did you have any other questions?
Yeah, one last one, if it's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think Northway was the lowest payment on that library
Yes,
note.
Northway, 2.3% for 5 years, 2.5 for 7 years.
Would you mind calling and asking for a current rate from them?
That is the current rate.
Okay, even today?
Yeah.
Because I know there was a few months
Yeah,
ago.
no, in fact, I had mentioned that, I think, to.
Yeah, you mentioned it to me,
I
yeah.
mentioned it to you, and I sent a copy in here. I called the bank and I said, can you give me the updated, so we have the right numbers when we go to town meeting?
Mhm.
And they said the numbers are the same, 2.3, 2.5, 2.75.
Okay.
On that,
And I've got a payment schedule, so I can.
And all we need to do is, in fact, probably what we should do this, if, Eric, you can make a note.
Yeah, I'm sure, would you?
We need 2 years of audited statements, so 15 and 16 audited statements, and 2016 and 2017, the current new town report when it comes in. We need to send those 4 pieces to the bank And probably the sooner we send those, they'll have everything that they need to
Right, okay.
sign the
I
paperwork.
think we have all that.
Yep.
We don't have the 17 audited.
No, they're looking for 15, 16 audited,
Yeah.
because they knew 17 is not gonna be ready. But they are looking for 16 and 17 town reports.
Yeah, we can do that.
And that's it from that standpoint.
Great.
On that subject, I had two questions. We got a citizen sent in a couple of questions by email. And one of the questions was, after the board speaks with Jack Widmer, could they publish, the board publish their intent as to what the terms of the financing will be and provide what the annual expense for the duration of the note will be? I think it is important for the voters to have that information prior to the vote.
Well, I think, I don't know where I saw that note as well, that I'm not certain where they expect we're gonna publish it between now and town meeting, but my hope would be that we could present at town meeting, there's gonna be a lot of discussion. We could present at town meeting what the proposed payment schedule would be. The final numbers, I mean, Gordon mentioned earlier that he's gonna look at adjusting the gross number depending on the cost of the septic system, which is now half as much money. So I think there's a lot of moving parts before we get to town meeting. But I think at town meeting, we can say, these are the payments, this is the rate, this is the effect on the taxes,
And,
you know.
and this particular conversation would be something good for us to do next Tuesday.
Yeah, we got all day.
We got all day, and, you know, we can sit down with the schedules and just kind of figure out.
How to make it simple.
Yeah, it's premature to, because the way I think the warrant article, and maybe it's not warrant article, it's up to the selectmen after the vote to decide the proper financing terms. I think that's kind of backwards of what would normally happen. You sort of say, okay, we're gonna finance it for 5 years, and this is gonna be the payment schedule, or we're gonna finance it for 7. You don't really have to make that decision necessarily until after the vote, which is sort of backwards, I think. But I think it would be better.
Well, it is, but
having-
that's the way
But there are a lot of
these
parts to
things
it too. I mean,
are structured.
I
so-
might be sitting here a week after town meeting saying, a 5-year payment's the way to go, and this is how we're gonna do it, you know, tax-wise.
Right.
And undesignated fund balance-wise, and, you know, our track record on spending budgets. But we don't know, I'm not comfortable having that conversation before town meeting,
Right,
so.
right, and that's why, that's kind of why they leave it kind of open there
Right.
at the end of the day. You know, and, you know, the good thing with this is there's no prepayment penalties.
Right.
So if at some point you want to make an advance payment on principal, you can certainly do that. You know, I think there's a lot of areas there that are wide open for you.
Second question, I had a citizen ask me, if at town meeting, the voters say, build this in 1 year, what is the impact on the tax rate?
Well, it's sort of the same question as, you know, what's the impact on 5 years or 7 years and all that, because it depends on the current assessed value of the town. It's based on the fact that the buildings in town exist today, that there's no new construction going on, there's no remodeling that's going on that's gonna add to the tax base, there's no changes ever. And that's a hard
Do
thing.
we pay for it in 1 year?
Yeah,
$2.
that's what you're saying.
I mean, I just off the top of my head, that's what I'm thinking, $2.
I understand this is not in
Yeah,
concrete.
I think it's actually gonna be a little less than that. But, because I think.
It's a little over a penny per $10,000 of expense.
Right.
It's like .010 something
Right,
per $10,000 of expense.
right.
So
So
you get
if
$1 million
you're
of
talking about
expense.
$1 million, you're talking about $100.
Yeah.
Or, you know, a dollar to the tax rate. I think, you know, you're talking about a $300,000 house, if you paid it off in 1 year, $300, $300,000 house, give or take. I mean, it could be a little bit more, a little bit less.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a little more than a dollar, but that's,
Yeah,
and
you know,
I'm
it's-
all for it, I'll
it's-
pay a
it's
dollar
hard to-
extra per thousand 1 year and then, but the argument then becomes, well, once you jack the tax rate up a dollar, it's gonna stay there forever.
Exactly.
And,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, I
There are
don't know
pros
if
and
there's any
cons.
evidence of that happening, but,
It's an interesting discussion.
yeah, and I don't know.
And again, both these instances were questions that citizens asked, so I bring them
Yeah.
forward.
Well, I think the hard part is, you don't want to be locked in to say, okay, you know, somebody said it's gonna be $300, or somebody says it's gonna be $400.
Right.
Because you don't know.
It's an estimate.
It's just an estimated number.
Yeah, we don't set the tax rate till October.
Yeah,
Right.
and when we talked about, you know, doing 7-year financing, I think the number on a $300,000 house for 7 years was about, I think $45 a year or something, over 7 years. That's with interest and all. Now, somebody said, oh, gee, maybe that's a little high, or maybe no, maybe that's a little bit low. How do you know?
Right,
It's a guesstimate.
right.
Yeah. Total assessed valuation changes every year.
And again, if there's.
And
if-
individual
And
property.
you can talk to Jack Parsons, if there's absolutely no permits for the next 7 years for new construction, well, you pretty much know where you're gonna be then as far as valuation. But I would hope that there'd be some new construction in town over there.
It was $10 million worth last year.
Well,
Really?
Yes.
Well, $10 million is gonna be added to the tax base, which is gonna
Yeah.
change the number that
Tax,
you're talking about.
yeah,
Based
right.
on what you
We
do.
didn't add $10 million worth of expenses to,
Well, exactly.
Mhm.
Right. Anything else for Jack?
thank you for coming in on
Oh,
short
thank you.
notice.
No, absolutely.
We appreciate what you do for the
Anytime,
town.
anytime, just give me a holler anytime you want to talk about anything. I'm good. Okay?
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jack.
Yeah.
The next item is Class 6 road, Skip Hurd. Thank you for being patient, Skip. Come on down. How are you today?
I'm fine, thanks. Thanks for taking the time to see me.
No problem. We had the road agent stick around.
Yeah,
because it
great.
does with roads.
Yeah, good, I'm glad to see you.
Yep.
I watched the tape last week, and Adam asking about having the not through sign. And I didn't hear anybody, Bill started talking about putting signs up that said, pass at your own risk, Class 6 road, whatever. So I didn't really get the feeling that you guys were going to, get a not a through road sign put up on that section of.
I think the
Welland Road.
Sign's been ordered, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly what I ordered.
Great, excellent, okay, super, because I think that's really what needs, because that section of road it's got a sign and it looks like a
Street.
straight, yeah, it looks like a Class 5 road, and somebody turns on there, and if they say not a through road, they're gonna think, well, it sure looks like it, my GPS is telling me that, and so, maybe I'll make it.
Are you talking about putting not a through road out by 171?
Yes.
That's what it
Yep.
is.
That's what we end up having to do on North Line Dirt section because we had the same problem.
Yes.
Yeah, it was sending people in trucks up North
We're
Line.
changing that over to Class 5, though. Didn't hear that.
Yeah.
Still not through road.